Welcome everyone to today's discussion, predictions for customer success in 2021. We're going to have a nice, relaxing, virtual fireside without the fire chat with one of the brightest minds in customer success, Adam Waid from SalesLoft. So, welcome, Adam. after a year, what's that? There's no fire. We talked about trying to simulate a fire, but we couldn't figure that out. So anyway, after a year like we've never experienced before, we're looking forward to big things in 2021. We're going to learn a lot about how Adam is thinking ahead and planning for this year. Now, of course, we know that this is year end for everybody, the last couple of days, either of the month or your fiscal year. So if we're talking fast or we end a little bit early, it's all good. Just let you know that might be why.
Yeah,
so anyway, it's
right.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Just poor planning on our part.
Very poor planning on our part. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to take a look back at last year and talk about how COVID affected SaaS company and customer success teams, and take some of those learnings and use them to look forward and see the customer success outlook for 2021, and maybe make a few predictions of what to expect this year. We're going to talk about how we're preparing for 2021 to make it successful, and then some trends in technology to be watching because there's always cool stuff coming. So we want to be at the forefront of that. Now, before we jump in, just a quick heads up, webinar is going to be recorded. We're going to share the recording with everybody on our YouTube channel, website, and we'll send it out as well in case you want to relive the experience. And lastly, if you have any questions for Adam, please type them into the question box. I'm going to be monitoring that. Adam loves challenging one-off questions, especially while he's focused at the end of the year, things used to keep him on his feet. So please, if you have anything you want to ask, don't be shy.
I love challenging questions, or I like asking challenging questions.
You love challenging questions, especially ones that you haven't prepared for. This is one of the things that I've learned as I've gotten to know you. So please, everybody, don't be shy about that. All right. Let's just jump in. A couple quick introductions. Quick note on me. I'm Dan Bonet, Chief Revenue Officer here at UserIQ. At UserIQ, our mission is to give customer success teams the power to predict outcomes and impact company growth with the most powerful, intuitive, and action-oriented platform on the market. I'm going to be facilitating the conversation today. And with me, of course, we've got Adam Waid from SalesLoft. I want to make sure I get your title right. VP of Global Customer Success, Renewals, and Technical Support at SalesLoft. I'm sure there's a lot that goes into that. So Adam's been a great friend. He's an advisor for UserIQ, all-around great guy. Really happy to have him with us. Adam, do you mind sharing a few things about yourself before we get started?
Sure. So Dan, what you guys don't know is Dan got a lot of grief before this about my photos. So apparently I'm going to be taking a new headshot soon. Says I look a little bit like a game. But anyhow, hey, it's a little bit
like a game show host.
It's great to be with you. I know that there are a million things. It's end of month, it's end of quarter. For a lot of you, it could be end of year like it is for SalesLoft. So not the best timing for this webinar, but we hope that you will walk away with some great nuggets. But as Dan mentioned, I get the privilege of leading our post-sales teams here at SalesLoft. And look, I have been privileged throughout my career to have great folks that I get to work alongside. I started my career in the marketing industry, got to help lead digital strategy for, Dan, you putting your finger up on me?
Weren't you Atlanta Marketer of the Year, not just working in marketing?
Sure, yes. So, but that's
okay. That's good.
I got to work with great brands like the NFL and the NBA and the White House in the Obama years, and went over to Salesforce for a number of years, helping lead their global customer success team. And then came over to SalesLoft because I knew the gym that SalesLoft was several years ago, and I wanted to be part of this rocket ship. And so I've had the privilege of building professional services and our first alliances program, and now helping take our customer success support renewals teams to the next level. So I'm excited to join today.
That's awesome. And I think you're downplaying yourself a little bit too, because I think you were also customer success strategist of the year at some point in your history. So, I mean, bottom line is we've got a lot of expertise and firepower with us on the horn today. So this is going to be great. I I hope everybody gets a lot out of the conversation. But hey, before we get into like the main topics, there's some news that I thought we could dig in on because I think there's some customer success learnings in there. It's been brought to my attention that with a recent round of funding, SalesLoft has achieved a $1 billion valuation, major milestone. So that's amazing. Congratulations on that, Adam. And it made me think about, hey, like, how does the CS function contribute to landing a monster round of funding like that? Maybe you can share a few things that you've observed.
Sure. So, well, thank you for that. It is such an incredible honor, one, to be part of this myself personally, but then to have this investment that we are literally, this is for our customers. This isn't for SalesLoft. This is to put right back into our customers. And the majority of the funding that we received is going right back into product innovations and the way that we support our customers. And so from a funding standpoint, investors always care about retention and net retention, renewal rates, operational efficiency. And so those are the things that we have been tracking diligently for several years now and working on improvement. And so I think for us, what really helped us was being able to have that data and show them where we needed to focus on and then what our plans were to focus on. So, which instilled a lot of confidence in investors.
Yeah, that was going to be my big question, right? Because I'm sure they did a lot of due diligence. And as they were doing due diligence, they're like, hey, if we're going to put all this money into this company, we need to know that, they've got things on lockdown when it comes to managing their customers, keeping churn away, net retention being high, knowing when to expand deals. Like that must have been a huge focus for them because churn can crush businesses, whether or not you get more funding or not. So thanks for sharing that because I guess that's going to be important for anybody thinking about raising money. Last question on this topic: with that money now in the bank, you feeling any more pressure?
More than I was before. I think there's an enormous amount of pressure to make sure that all these great customers that we sell the vision and the dream and the art of the possible to, all of that comes to actuality and bears fruit in the post-sale cycle. And so, yeah, there's a lot of pressure, but the good news is that we have an incredible team. We have an incredible board and investors that are allowing us to invest in the resources and technology and the people that we need to make our customers successful and blow their sales quotas out of the water.
That's awesome. Yeah. So listen, Waid, we wish you luck as you put that money to good use and accelerate your growth. So really excited to see what comes next. So let's jump into the presentation, right? Let's jump into the conversation here. To get started, let's take a quick look back at 2020. And as we think about and reflect upon the past, like the question that comes to mind is, what was the most memorable for you about how this past year affected you and your team?
It's a big one because there's lots. Let me start on a funny note. I guess it's kind of funny. It's a little bit painful when we think about it as well. But we had our big annual Rev conference scheduled in San Francisco in mid-March, and January.
I remember.
There was this incredible internal push to get registrants, and things were going well. We had all these internal contests. We had posters everywhere. Our marketing team had put memes of me all over the office, some of which were a little bit inappropriate, but that's okay. We'll let it go. But
memes of you? I got to get one of those for our next discussion.
It was, yeah. So it came to a screeching halt on March 13th, and so it was, we actually let everyone work from home. I went back to the office the other day, and it's like time stood still. There were still Rev things all over the place. So it's like things didn't move after March 13th. But anyhow, so we're in hindsight, we're thankful that we ended up canceling it. We're thankful that everyone stayed healthy, but it was quite memorable.
Yeah. And I remember that because I don't remember if I had a plane ticket and was going. I think I was going either after your conference or yours and another conference. And I remember, do I cancel my flight? Do I not? Like, what should I do? And I remember canceling my flight and then all the other conferences that I was lined up to go to subsequently getting canceled. So yeah, thanks for making me relive that. So after that, how did you handle some of the major changes that were necessary, right? As COVID just kept walloping businesses around the world?
Yeah, so I think our two biggest priorities. The first one was our people, making sure that our people were taken care of both physically and emotionally through all of this. I mean, it was incredibly traumatic for so many people on so many different levels and for so many reasons. And so just making sure that we were, as a leadership team, and our executive team did a phenomenal job of making sure that we were very transparent with all the communications, that we started early creating cultural things that we could do remotely, making sure that the team felt valued, felt like we were providing ways for them to have mental health breaks, also counseling if need be. So we really rallied in the first couple of days or so when all that really went down to make sure that our teams were okay and put in process for that. And then secondly, to make sure our customers felt the same way. They felt they were going through an enormous amount of change, many of which had never had remote teams before. You think about a bunch of SDR teams, they're all right there and kind of like this gauntlet. And so we set out literally the next week and created a company-wide OKR to embrace the base. And so things like making sure that all of our training resources were free, creating resources for our SalesLoft managers, our customers, to learn how to manage their teams remotely. We also created, I'm really proud of my team on this, we created this dashboard in Salesforce. We call it the COVID dashboard. We wanted to make sure that 100% of our customers got touched in the first 2 weeks after lockdown, just to make sure that things were fine. And they pounded the phones, they called them, they emailed them, we sent gifts. And so just to making sure that they felt good and taken care of. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, like how quickly was your leadership team able to like come together, formulate a plan, and start executing on some of those things you just mentioned? Because I mean, it caught everybody by surprise, right?
It did. I say this with all sincerity and all honesty and humility here. The SalesLoft leadership team truly was the best that I had heard of any of my peers. They were so incredibly proactive with communication. They were so incredibly transparent. We already had weekly all hands, but the communications that were going out about all that was going on, the resources that we had available, how we were rallying behind each other. I mean, I got more information from my executive team than I did from my kids' schools on how to teach my kids remotely. So it was incredible.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. It's interesting, like for thinking about this, like in customer success terms, right? Like it really shone a light on how important your customers are and how quickly things come up. You need to be able to react to your customers, and for those companies that didn't have like a really good customer success program in place, like how important it really is. It really is, because new customers, and forget about it, like that well was dry for 6 months. And so really the only thing you could do is protect your customer base. And if you weren't doing that effectively, you started feeling the pinch on that side of the house too, which is tough. It's tough. So maybe spend like a couple seconds talking about like, how did you guys settle in, right? Everybody got, scattered. They had to figure out a new way of working, right? How did you guys get settled into that new way of working?
So from a tactical standpoint, while making sure that Zoom fatigue, which is a real thing, did not happen, we knew that we needed to at first recreate the office dynamic of just communication. So my leadership team always had daily stand-ups, but now the entire team, broken out by segments and individual teams, had daily stand-ups, 15 minutes, no more than 15 minutes of what did they do yesterday, what are they doing today, any blockers. And that helped to kind of recreate some communication and consistency there that maybe they would have chatter in the office on. Like I said, SalesLoft was already incredibly transparent with weekly all hands and emails from Kyle every Sunday night about what's going on with the business. But we really began then to ramp up, how do we stay emotionally healthy? I mean, I know this, I keep repeating this, but there were so many folks that were just enamored with the news and the stock market and all the things that were going on around the country and around the world, really, that we wanted to make sure that our employees felt emotionally healthy. And so rolling out rest days. So we implemented rest days every other Friday during the summertime. and we implemented focus days because, I mean, look, everyone was exhausted from Zoom meetings and, working longer hours because they didn't necessarily have to commute. And so they would just stay in front of their computer and work. But we were also on lots of calls. And so we implemented focus days where it was once a month on Fridays. There were absolutely no internal meetings, none. And you were to knock out.
I love this.
It was
I
so.
love the sound of that.
It was.
I hope you're keeping that up because I know how it can be when your calendar is always blocked all week long. It's draining. So I guess the last question I had on this topic, and then we'll go into the forward-looking stuff, is all of those distractions. You implemented a lot of mental health stuff to keep people keeping onto their sanity and kind of establishing the fact that, hey, we're going to take care of you as best as we can. But now the business still has to get done, right? So how do you keep them focused on the most important things that the business needed to happen?
Yeah. So kind of tying back also how we want to make sure our customers were taken care of. One of the things that we quickly did was we knew that companies were going to struggle during this time. There were and had already been some layoffs. A lot of sales turned from, kind of hockey stick or upward to just flat. Flat's the new growth was what was the term around. So we got in lockstep very quickly with our finance team on how to provide the right restitutions, the right financial payments for our customers to give them a little bit of breathing room during this time, because we knew that if we needed that, we would have want that from our vendors. And so that's one thing that we pivoted to really quickly, which helped us build long-term relationships with some of these customers that were struggling. In fact, we had a customer email us and said that he was dipping out of his personal savings to fund his company for the next couple of months. And so we really wanted to work with them. The next two things really were, I wanted to make sure that my team was operationally proficient, meaning we were all working remotely. We all needed to know the numbers down to like the third decimal point from a churn perspective. And so we built in these operational, rigorous meetings and stand-ups and just communications to make sure that everyone was aligned on the numbers that we were going after. And that really helped my managers and my CSMs specifically take ownership of what was going on within the business. And then last thing, which helped us, we had always been proactive with our executive team on what was going on with our customer base, but even more so now, like churn and retention was such a focus last year that we built in more programs, internal communications to alert the executive team and the product team and everything know what's going on with our customer base so that we can make pivots as need be. And so we scheduled out all of those meetings starting in like March, I think 20th or so through December of this past year to make sure that it was consistent.
That's great. Lots. I mean, that's really a good comprehensive way of thinking about how to deal with a catastrophe like that. As you're talking, I'm just thinking about, there's things that you got to do in the moment when those things are happening, right? COVID is making you change. And then there's things that you can do now that the year has passed, and you can look back and spend some time really reflecting on what it was like to live through that and how can you operate differently and better in the future. So if for those who are listening who haven't done that, I definitely recommend doing that. So really good, Adam. Thank you for that. So now let's, those things in the past, some learnings to be had from there. Let's take a look out in the future. As you look forward to 2021 and continuing to grow and accelerate, can you kick us off by sharing, what are some of the big things that you expect out of customer success in 2021?
Robots are going to take over. That's the bottom. Just kidding.
Chatbots, artificial intelligence, chatbots, and virtual reality.
Actual human beings has gone by the wayside. No, look.
I've been waiting for this.
Don't quote me. December 2021. So I think it's always been, especially in SaaS companies, retention has always been incredibly important. But this past year, with most companies, sales projections remaining flat, or certainly not as exponential growth as they had initially anticipated in January, a lot of focus started coming down onto retention and keeping customers on term. Yeah. And so I think what that shined a light on, that's going to continue this trend and has been it's been talked about, and I would say it's been loosely adopted, is this cross-functional alignment and ownership of churn. I always ask the question when I go into meetings with teams, I'm like, who's responsible for customer adoption and renewal? And it's a trick question because some people will not raise their hand, and I'm like, all of us are. So it's not just customer success or support or professional services. We're all responsible for that. And the problem
I try to use the same thing when people start hitting me up on, are you going to hit your quota this month? I'm like, who's responsible for making sure we hit our quota every month? And I try to get the same response out of people, and I'm not always as effective as you must be. So sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
Well, I think we're going to talk about it a little bit. I'm not one to shrug responsibility and be like, it's not my problem, it's all of our problems. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think this year really showcased why cross-functionally product and engineering and technical support, why we all need to be held responsible, accountable, have metrics in our yearly goals on customer adoption and customer churn. And at SalesLoft, we pivoted a lot of our OKRs, or our plans, if you will, and the product team began to really work in adoption-focused and churn-focused metrics into their planning. And I think that from a trend perspective, and I would encourage all the CS leaders right now, if your company is not taking it seriously to get everyone involved in customer adoption, retention, and churn, then you need to be the voice internally to say, now is the time for us to all rally together. If you need to be the one that schedules the meeting, then you do that. So that's one, cross-functional alignment and accountability. And I truly, there's been a lot of buzz about that in the past 2 years, but it needs to happen right now because you will not keep customers in this environment if you don't.
I feel like there's an opportunity for you to start a blog about how to do that effectively, because I bet a lot of people would want to do that, but not everybody might be as proficient in working with their executive teams and cross-functional teams to actually get it done. So I'm just assigning you more work is what I'm trying to do while we're on the target.
But that does sound like a great another webinar topic that we could do.
Yeah.
Because,
okay.
I would say the next thing that is going to be a big trend is really, again, a little bit of a buzz phrase, but I'm going to break it down, is really beginning to actually map out and spend investment on the customer journey. And the reason is because that's such a buzz phrase, but what we did at SalesLoft, and I'm incredibly proud of our team, and it was led actually by Sean Fowler, who leads our sales enablement team. We literally mapped out the current customer journey, not what we want it to be, the reality of it, and there were a lot of gaps, candidly. And so we did that for about 2 or 3 months. He did a lot of cross-functional meetings, little customer interviews, and then we spent some time mapping out what is it that we want it to be or that our customers need it to be. And so some of those changes are now being implemented as we start this new year, from an alignment perspective, from a metrics perspective. And so if you haven't really taken a strong look at where your customers are fit, where your communication with customers are failing, where the handoffs are failing, you're kind of out of excuses now, because customers will either continue with your platform because things are working well, or they're going to slash the budget because budgets will be tight.
I think just a comment on that. I think that's a fantastic idea, because I think you always have when you're in the trenches, kind of just doing what you do every day, you have a perception of what your customer journey is. And again, kind of like looking back at last year, right? Taking a moment to pause and think and be like, what do we really want this to be like? And what are the key inflection points in that journey that we really want to double down and make it unique or meaningful or memorable? And then building those things in either in one fell swoop or over time to improve it and make a great experience all the way through.
That's right. And really, for all those that are listening and it seems overwhelming, don't let it be overwhelming. Literally map it out by stage, write out what they experience, and then you can continue to iterate. And if any of you guys on the call want to talk through that, you can certainly reach out to me afterwards, and we can schedule some time and I can kind of walk you through how we did it. But it's important.
Oh, we'll get your email address out there. Don't worry.
Just myself. Dan. Just let everyone call me.
Yep.
And then I would say the last really is, and again, it's a buzz phrase it's thrown around in customer success, but I have not seen a lot of success teams or companies do it, which is true value-based selling and ongoing success. And what I mean by that is really tracking the goals that your customers have during the sales cycle all the way through the customer journey. I know it's difficult, and I know that there's a lot of incentives for sales folks to not do certain things, and then you're scaling your customer success team. But the reality is now is every CFO is going to be looking at tech stacks, and every leader, sales leader, marketing leader, tech leader, whoever your target audience is going to have to justify their tech stack even more critical this year. And so if you cannot show the actual value that your customers have achieved with your platform, you're doing yourself a disservice, because they could care less about how many activities they did or how many QBRs you did or if you went on site. They want to see the ROI. And so if you don't have a great way of tracking that right now, now's the time to invest in it.
Awesome. Yeah, really good advice. I don't even have anything to add to that. Okay, we'll move on. You stumped me. Usually I have a question or something to follow up with. I don't have anything. All right, so let's move on. Let's move on to the next topic. And so, by the way, reminder to everybody, listening and participating, if you have any questions for Adam as we're talking through this discussion, please type them into the question box. I'm watching that. So CS, right, we have seen customer success as a functional area really rise up as in importance, a trend that I personally don't think is going to change at all. New existing roles like customer success operations have emerged, similar to how revenue operations have emerged, right? At UserIQ, we talk to hundreds and hundreds of CS leaders every day, and they what you just said, they continue to be focused on, right? Onboarding, adoption, data, things like that continue to stay in high focus. And so, looking forward, how do you expect the CS organization to change, if at all?
A little bit of a curveball here, Dan. All right, so let me think about this. So I think, can I answer it in a little bit different way versus like how will they change? You know what? Let me share one of my biggest mistakes that I've made. I have many.
Great. We like mistakes. I'll ask you for some more mistakes later. This is good.
I've got hundreds of them. We could do a whole other web. But one of my big mistakes was as a CS leader, I own churn. My team owns churn. Now, it is the company's responsibility to help improve it, but I own that number. And so because I own it, I always present that number back to the executive team and showcase why we're losing customers, why customers are all of the metrics. But the problem is that while I am standing on a pedestal saying it's a company issue, let's solve this together, I went into those meetings not having talked with other leaders in the organization about the churn problems. So it was very much like when we do quarterly churn reviews, I went in there and I was like, here's why we lost customers, here's what we need to do about it. Well, as you can imagine, as a product leader, as an engineering leader, as a marketing leader, if you're in a meeting or the executives and I'm pointing out things that we need to improve upon, but you were not included in the discussion, it creates tension. And so one of my biggest mistakes that I have since thankfully been able to pivot is to incorporate and to collaborate regularly with our leaders, our executive team on here are the trends that we're seeing. Can we work together to put a plan together? And so now we go into these meetings and I don't have to do all the talking for 2 hours. The executives, we all work together to say, this product issue is causing a concern here, so this is what we're going to do, or whatever the case may be. And so I encourage all of you as we begin to pivot is to hold other teams accountable through data, but collaborate with them together to create a plan of how you're going to solve for your biggest churn or retention issues.
And what type of stuff do you bring to those meetings? So let's say you're going to meet with your head of product, right? and you want to come prepared with something to facilitate that discussion, what are some of the things that you bring to that meeting so that you guys can work together the right way?
Well, let me tell you what you should not bring to the meeting first. You should not bring
Okay.
emotional garbage that talks because things are on fire and your biggest customer is frustrated and there's, there's just all these emotions. What you need to bring is data. And so for that specific question, Dan, that specific scenario, we track all product requests or gaps that our customers ask us for in Salesforce, and we tie it to ARR. So we know at any given time what the major product requests are and how much ARR is tied to that request. In addition to that, we track the customer that we only lose about one customer a year anyhow, so no. But any customer that
fantastic program you're running there.
The customers that we lose, unfortunately, we will track both primary and secondary reasons. And if it's product related, we bring that to them to say, let's talk through, here are the gaps that our customers are suggesting, and here are reasons why these customers left. So we're bringing both leading and lagging indicators of how we can improve overall retention rates. And so that then allows us to come to the table with data to help them influence the product roadmap.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great example. Can you give us is there another example maybe on meeting with your head of marketing or head of engineering or somebody else that you meet with regularly, and what do you talk about with them?
So let's just say, our customers are wanting more communications about product releases, or they want more communications about where the roadmap is going. And so bringing those data points and those both analytical and annotative information to the marketing team to help us create a better product marketing strategy, a better product roadmap presentation. That type of thing gets folks to be able to put resources in different teams behind your requests.
Yeah.
So often customer success teams, because we're touchy-feely, that's what builds good relationships. But if you don't have the data to back it up, then it's very difficult to get another leader to change and prioritize your asks.
So this is great information, right? I like the idea of taking the data, the reasons people are churning, tying it to revenue, and kind of helping product or whoever prioritize, what we need to do to prevent X number of dollars from churning in the future. I think that's really smart. Our SalesLoft is a mid-sized company now, right? So you probably have a big CS team. You got people to churn the data and look at that stuff for you. How hard is that when SalesLoft was a lot smaller? Is that something? How would you recommend somebody in an SMB company try to accomplish the same thing?
So just collecting churn data, or just in any other way? Having the same conversation while they might not have the same tech stack and resources of people to do the analysis for them. Yeah. So I would strongly encourage you to give up one of your headcount in this coming year to a CS ops person who can help generate reports. It may be painful because you may be stretched thin right now, but in the long run, having someone that will help you run reports, run the data, help create capacity modeling will help you in the long run. And so that's probably what I didn't mention, that I would say invest in a CS ops person. But at the very least, what we started doing, when I first started SalesLoft, we had none of this. It was a Google spreadsheet, candidly, and we got with product and we said, what are the big areas that you focus on? How do you categorize the product? And then that's what we used to create reasons for loss. Those are the categories. And so then we got on phones with customers that were thinking about churning or ended up churning, and we asked them why. And then we would input that data so that we had, information and actual data about why customers were leaving. And then we just continued to expand on that. And then, the other thing that I would say is if your CSMs are not tracking their activity right now in any CRM, they need to be doing that, because at some point you're going to need to be able to see which activities impact overall adoption and which ones don't.
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, right, all of the data that you're talking about and the conversations with other people is really around how can we change the product or change something in our company to give more to our customers that will hopefully make your team's job easier in dealing with situations they don't have to deal with anymore because you fixed them, right? So having a CS ops person or even a part-time resource that can help with that is going to pay for itself quickly.
Yeah, and one thing I just mentioned this real quick. I know we're probably going to move on, and we're coming up on time here, but I just want to strongly encourage the CS leaders here to lean in to owning the churn number. You know, I think so many times there may be a little bit of I don't know, like shrugging or a little bit of fear, but the more that you are involved in the revenue organization and the more that you bring data to conversations about how to improve the overall revenue organization, the more ability that you'll have and leverage that you'll have to get the right funding for your teams and resources for your teams.
Yeah.
So lean and press into it versus trying to shy away from it.
That's great. Awesome advice. Okay, let's move on to the next topic, right? So as you can imagine, anytime there's a functional area that is growing as quickly as customer success is, you can be assured that there'll be a rapid evolution in technology to support them. We've seen this happening. Tools for customer success teams like UserIQ and others are evolving very quickly, and there's a lot of good stuff going on in the market, right? I'm sure even you personally, Adam, are getting prospected by everybody who's looking to sell to customer success leaders, right? You're probably in hundreds of SalesLoft cadences targeted right at you. And you're kind of a victim of your own technology, right? You've made it easy for people to prospect you, so I hope you feel good about that. Is there anything that you've seen in the market that's kind of piqued your interest as you look forward to 2021, things that you're excited about?
Yeah, you know, I actually had someone prospect me the other day for a CS platform or tool. And they actually put at the bottom, by the way, this is a SalesLoft cadence, thought you would like to know. And so that got me to respond. It was really nice. But
yeah, it's awesome.
So, and I apologize too. My daughter just got home from school, so she's ringing the doorbell. Hopefully my wife is going to let her in, but we'll wrap this up. So I would say a couple things, especially as the teams for the foreseeable future are going to be working remotely. Call recording is going to be key for better coaching, for better handoffs, for voice of the customer programs, for we use our own conversational intelligence to do shout outs during all hands to give praise and give feedback of what customers are saying about the product or the team. So call recording is going to be huge. The ability to automate, track proactive touch points is going to be big because especially in SaaS, you're going to continue to get more customers and you're not going to be able to go and fly and meet them anytime soon. So putting them on regular proactive touch points is going to be big. Like I mentioned, CS Ops, having a resource there to help you with that.
Yep.
And then, oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Nope, I was agreeing with you. It's all good stuff.
And I touched on this earlier about the value selling. I think that CS teams, I would love to see more CS teams get more contextualized data about the success that their customers are seeing with their platform versus just adoption trends like DAU and NPS and all that, which is all good. But like, what's the real value that the customers are seeing so that you can use that back in presentations and certainly if anything ever gets sticky with that client, you can show them the actual value that they've seen.
Yeah, no, that's great. The landscape is changing so rapidly. It's fun to watch, right? It's incredible to be a part of it. But ultimately, any technology that I'm sure you're bringing on, you need to make sure that it's adding value and solving some type of problem, and you're getting results out of it. Your customers are happier for it. And so, some of the things that I piqued my interest when you were talking is that proactive touch points and making sure that, look, the landscape is getting more competitive in SaaS. We all know that. Customer acquisition costs are high. So you've got to do more than your fair share of activity to make sure you know what's going on in your customers, that they're happy. If they're not happy, you're getting in front of it quickly. And the only way to do that is to prioritize your work and keep in touch with them and get those signals of, hey, we've got a problem. we got to put all hands on deck and go solve it. So it seems like there's a lot of room for technology to continue to innovate in that area and let teams like yours be even more proactive. Right. Especially when it comes to prioritizing. Maybe you can share a little bit about how you guys do this, but like prioritizing, you got enterprise customers, 7-figure accounts that are obviously very important. And you've got, thousands of SMB customers like UserIQ. We're one of your customers. We're on the smaller side. But I want to feel loved too, Adam. I want to make sure that people are making sure I'm successful with your tool. So how do you balance that? What technology help you guys, make sure that the Dans of the world feel just as important as the enterprise customers?
Well, hopefully you do, Dan. And if not, you have my number. Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. We segment our book, obviously by a sales segment, but then we also have adoption-related matrices of how we segment out our customers. So what I mean by that is customers that are low or adopting get surfaced to the top through and we send more proactive cadences. We use SalesLoft to send proactive cadences. We've got adoption cadences, low optimization cadences, high NPS or low NPS cadences. So we use our own platform. This is not a sales pitch, but I'm very grateful that we do. And then we scaled our programs to create, we have 85 live customer adoption programs every single month, because the reality is, Dan, you know this, that like—
You said 85? You said 85?
85 live programs running every single month. We have, every day we have programs for our customers. And my CS team runs all of those.
Wow.
And so, but what we wanted to be able to do was to provide every customer, no matter how much they're paying, what sales segment they're in, or where they're at in the world, have ways to talk live with someone at SalesLoft or an expert in the industry. And so that's why we built that. And then a lot of our communications do drive from a scalability and proficiency and operational efficiency standpoint back to those programs. But then what it allows us then to do is to surface which customers we need to proactively reach out to do one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, that's awesome. Making me a little bit jealous about things we can do on our side. 85 programs, man, that's overwhelming. That's great stuff.
Geeky about that too, so happy to talk about it.
Sweet. All right, let's close it out. We're getting close to the top of the hour on our last topic again. One last call for questions for Adam, if you've got any. All right, so we talked about a lot of really great ideas here. Let's package them up and send everybody off with a nice, clean summary, right? If you could encourage CS leaders out there, peers of yours, to do one or two things this year to really ratchet their program forward, what would those things be?
One or two things.
I mean, we got 20 minutes, so you can probably have time for like 5 or 6 things if you want, but be mindful of its year end, so we want to be mindful of that.
I would tell my CS counterparts here to get your operational house in order. Meaning, if you don't know your forecast down, your churn forecast down to like the third decimal point, if you don't know where your customers are churning, if you don't know how many activities your teams are doing and which ones of those are providing the most adoption value, if you can't tell churn trends by segment, by industry, by what implementation package they bought, if you can't segment out like that, or if you don't have capacity planning models to help you go into board meetings or executive meetings to properly propose the resources that you need, now is the time to do that, because there's never been more eyes on the post-sales teams than there are in this moment, in this phase of the industry that we're in, the economy that we're in. And so now is the time. Get your house in order so that you can go to board meetings, executive meetings, and have the best proposals and presentations about the resources that your team desperately needs.
We're going to end on that, aren't we?
We're going to end on that, I think.
All right, that's fantastic. All right, so yeah, that takes us to the end of the session, man. Incredible conversation, Adam. Thank you so much for taking some time out of a really busy quarter at the very end of your fiscal year to spend time with us and talk about some of these topics. Really appreciate your insights and experience. And maybe, 12 months from now, we'll have another virtual fireside-ish chat to see if your predictions actually came true. We got to see if you were on the market.
Only if you have an actual fire.
Fair enough. So hey, everyone, hope everybody found some value in this. Again, we'll be sharing it on our YouTube channel, on our website, and sending out the recording to everybody that registered. Hope everybody has a fantastic end of their week. Thanks for joining.